So what I thought we'd do is we'd go over some of the basic ways that the wrist locks work. I just explain what it is that our end goal is. Like, just we'll start at the simple mechanics of it, and then I'll show you a couple of simple ones and how they would actually relate into a self-defense technique and then actual rolling technique. Because what you're going to find is that you can hit the wrist locks the way that I'm showing you. You're going to be able to do them in almost any kind of environment. So anytime that you're presented with a limb, so you think about anytime anybody's going to extend an arm or towards you, you have that capability, right? So we use the common one that most people have seen is that outward wrist turn. Has everybody seen this at some point? So what is it that's happening with the joint is that we are actually going to be extending the joint through its entire range of motion, okay? So as it comes back and over, you can start to feel resistance and tension right here when the ligament and the muscles, depending on how flexible that person is, has reached the end of that, okay? So to the novice, you get to this point and you're pushing, trying to make him take the pain. But if Dan keeps good posture, so he's standing up nice and strong, and I'm just pushing into him, he can actually resist that fairly well. What I want to do is I want to use his body mechanics to manipulate to the elbow, to the shoulder, to the hip, and eventually to the knee if you get proficient at it enough. The best analogy I can think of is, you know those little toy snakes that are all made out of wooden links? So you pick it up and it's all floppy, but when you start twisting it the right way, eventually you can have it as a solid or you can have it link around. That's what we're trying to do with the body, but we're starting right here at the fingers or at the hands. Okay? And what's really unique about the wrist locks is that if we're static like this and Dan's resisting, how is it that we can actually start to move him? So if we start to walk, so if Dan starts moving into me, just slowly look at his posture. So we'll go this way so you can see. So if Dan starts to move, I'll just hold on to it the same way that it was without having to put in any more pressure. So can you see that? Go this way too. So as Dan starts to move, so you see what happened to his shoulder, his hip, his knee, he's eventually starting to collapse. So that's an important element, and you're not pushing into it. It's just a nice light hold. So if we were to go, come in, it doesn't have to be anything aggressive. That's using another one just to give you a good example too. So from this type of block, it's the same idea. If I'm pushing, this is the one that we practice here. So I'm pushing back, right? So I have his wrist locked out as far as it can go this way. And now I'm trying to manipulate this joint back up towards him here. He can take a lot of that pressure from strength. But now if I apply a vector into him this way, as Dan starts to move, he has no choice but to go down. It's just one of these snake kind of things. So as he starts to move into me, or I start pushing that vector in there, his body actually starts to coil around that pressure and he's spiraling himself into the ground. So did you feel pain here, or did you feel more tension that you had to go?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both?
Yeah.
As opposed to,
that's
I can
pain.
push it,
yeah.
So I can push,
Yeah.
but if you're a big guy like maybe Al, who's got bigger wrists, you'd have to get really strong to do that. The moment I start to push in,
Gotcha.
does that kind of make sense to everybody? All right, so why don't we just partner up for 2 seconds and just give that a try just to see how you can gently, and so to start with while we're doing this, everybody go really, really easy on each other for the start. We don't want to hyperextend anybody any further, right? So nice light touches to begin with, and just experiment with that for a moment, and then we're going to come back and actually put that into play. See how he's starting to, his posture is already broken.
Yeah.
Yes. Use that as a handle. As you come in, your hand is going to be hers. So you're just going to push her range of motion all the way through here, all the way through here, and then let her start moving into you. Good. So from a self-defense point of view, we'll do like a chest grab. So as Dan comes in to grab, we're gonna reach over. So as he comes in, if I let him grab me, so whether this is gonna punch me or whatever the case is, to deal with this hand, the exact same thing. I'm gonna reach over and I'm gonna try to get to that meaty pad underneath his pinky. Roll his hand over as far as I can get, right? And so thinking about the mechanics, what do I need to do with his arm? Bend in. And this is why I say we go slow. We don't want to use like a lot of force. We're going to want to use our entire body. So rather than bending at the waist, I always want to keep good posture, and I want to destroy his posture. So as I'm rolling him over, I want to put my entire body against his one joint, right? Being his shoulder in this particular case. Even though I have his hand and it's affecting his wrist, right? Wrist to elbow to shoulder. So as my hand comes here, I have him backstopped against my chest or my shoulder, wherever he's grabbed. And think about taking your knee and almost touching his. So I'm going to move straight down. So now he's down. He can try to stand up if he wishes. The chances are he's not going to be able to. So from here, from your self-defense point of view, whether you want to put him on the ground, that's up to you. You want to run away, that works too. So again, from the grab, over, into the elbow, vector out, now down. As you step, think about almost sliding in on an angle. Yes. Keep your posture. Don't bend at the waist. Don't, you know, like always stay, you want to stay strong, right?
Yeah. So just kind of almost leaning forward a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, you want to keep your shoulders over your hips.
Okay.
Right? You want to stay with your strong posture. You want to destroy his. Yeah? Beautiful. You do it hard enough, he'll go down to his knee.
Yeah. And all I have to do is just add more pressure, is almost just keep on going forward, right? Don't bend over, just try to push forward into him, right? Is that more pressure?
Yeah. Here. Right when you have it, as far as when you start feeling resistance, and the same thing, you start moving up because you can use your shoulders now as well. Okay, so my arm is straight, and as you do that, you don't bend at the waist. Think about sliding on an angle towards me, almost like you're touching my. And if you want to finish it from here, you already have me down, so you should hold it nice and tight, putting pressure outwards that way, so that if I try to stand up into it, I can without it hurting. If I try any further, I'll end up dislocating it. This hand can slide to my elbow. From underneath. Push up to the roots and slide me over. And how many people, when you're doing this, were you guys feeling pain from each other, or were you feeling more pressure? Or most likely you're feeling some pain to begin with. The more you practice, the better you get at it. The more sensitive you will be when you're actually doing it to somebody else. You'll be able to see that you don't need to push in quite as hard in order to get that break in their posture, right? So we want that postural change in the person. We want to be able to just all of a sudden now his shoulder is down. What if he tries to stand back up because I'm too slow, right? But he's already out of balance. I'm nice and straight, which is kind of what we want as far as self-defense goes, and as well as jits, right? So like if we were tying up, like even from, we're about to stand and grapple, if Dan reaches out, like how many times do you see this? Like every time, right? So maybe I can't get the roll because he's all of a sudden trying to withdraw his hand, but what happened to his posture the moment I had him, right? So there's always these opportunities. So, you know, anytime that we can manipulate somebody's posture, I think that's a good thing, right? Okay, so if I'm going to be taking the omoplata right from here, all of a sudden, Dan doesn't want to get stretched out, so his knees are coming up, so he's trying to keep his hips up high. See how I already have, where's my leg? It's already up over the shoulder. See the bend in his elbow? Remember that outward vector? So I already have that partially going on. Look where his hand is right now. Right in here. Feel it?
Yep.
As we come over, it starts to come up. Hands in. So we'll go from a clinch. So whether we're in a fight and we're tied up or whatever the case is, or from standing, right? So we get into the clinch, right? How do I get to this hand? I can push my shoulder in. You can see right here, the shoulder pushing this way. So I'm going to open up. Spin again. So as I step nice and close, I push my shoulder in to break this off of my head. I come back out, and there it is. So now how do I get him on the ground? So this is where we started when we were experimenting. People were wondering too, how do you get the guy on the ground? So from here, I don't really want to walk in and push. So we're going to think about that range of motion as far as he can go, and now my hand to match his hands. I'm going to continue this motion and think about, I want to put my hand to my belt, right to my center. So I'll go nice and slow. Okay. The next lock that we'll do, I'll just go over the basic mechanics of it, is called Sankajo. So that was Nikajo that we were working on. So anytime that you actually see, this is the hand. So we want to grab, if everybody can see, spin around it. Hand to hand, again, nice little handle right here. So the trick with this particular one is we want to make sure that we keep a bend. Okay, we want to keep a bend in the wrist. So we want the wrist bent out like this. So how would we get into it if somebody were to grab this way, and from a self-defense point of view, put their hand on you, it's right there. Somebody grabs my wrist, you can get to it as well. Anytime you can move over. Okay. So we don't want to keep that wrist straight under no circumstances. Once I get this bend in him, I don't want to let Dan straighten his wrist out. As soon as he does that, you've lost it. Okay. So how do we keep that here? Well, a really, really easy way is fingers. So up, I'm looking at his palm, right? So if somebody's reaching out, getting mouthy, whatever, grab their hand. Now I have this, and I have that bend. So my hand can actually act like a hook, so I have them up here. If I want to put it on tight, I want to get Dan up on his tippy toes. So I'm going to lift up. If they're big, lift up into the elbow. Think about that elbow, you want straight up. Can you feel pressure? Mm-hmm. So now he'll go wherever I want him to go. When you're actually doing this, do it nice and light, because it is a lot of pressure. So if I want to move Dan around, push into him. So what you're actually trying to do is spiral this hand right back into his center. So keep it in your center of control. His posture is a mess right now. And as I push his hand back into him, he's going to go wherever I like. As far as a takedown would go, we have his elbow locked out into his shoulder, into that far hip is where he's got all of that pressure right now. So we'll put, where's it light?
Right side there, like that.
So right from here, right down.
And pull.
So again,
It's funny that you say the pressure's all into this hip. I mentally understand that, but I feel it all right here.
yeah, you feel it here.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about pain compliance versus just pressure, so this is just enough to keep him upright. Like, does that hurt? Right now, if I'm just sitting here like this?
It's definitely, if I like relax, it's like, okay.
Uncomfortable.
Right, so he's up on his tippy toes because that's the only thing that's comfortable for him. But I'm not using any strength whatsoever, right? The moment he tries to put his heels down, it hurts. Does that make sense? So if for some reason, say Dan was all coked out or all, you know, like from self-defense side here now, if he is stronger than me or he just doesn't want to feel the pain because he's drunk, he could sit back down. But what's going to happen is now all that pressure's into his rotator cuff. At some point, if he reaches around to try to punch me in the face, that rotator cuff will separate.
Give me some drinks.
So as far as the fight goes along, so anytime that we do anything, if you were to throw it like a haymaker,
It's just stretched out a little bit on that side.
so if you were to throw like a haymaker or whatever the case is, and you get to any spot where you can grab to the hands, that's where that is. Okay. And when we put him down, think about, this is for all of those takedowns. I'm just going to show you the same one. Self-defense, if you want to put the person down face first, it's a lot easier from a police point of view too. That's, you know, where you want to get them cuffed, right? So when I'm putting anybody down, shoulder into the ground, right? I'm not trying to lie him flat. I'm not trying to get his elbow down first. I'm trying to drive the shoulder first. Let the rest of the body follow. So up, around, shoulder first.
Bring the hand palm down.
Oh yeah,
palm down.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, okay, yeah, get it into your body.
Yeah, that way you can put the pressure like, yeah.
Okay.
Feel that.
And then it comes down.
So straighten your arm out.
Triangle.
Anytime a hand is extended, you have it right now, like right here, you have whatever lock you want. That's why I'm just showing you like the general mechanics of it. So right from here, it's there. That's the one I decided to take for whatever reason. Although I could have just as easily gone to here, or I could have just as easily taken a traditional straight arm lock. Okay, so it's just, look at the palm. From a rear naked choke, as soon as this arm starts coming around, look what I got, right? So same idea, same principle, keep pushing in, right? So I want to push the fingers up and in. And as I'm doing that, it's really important to get my head to the other side so I can push into Dan.
Hey.
Go again. There, mine. Hands
So
coming
Dan,
across.
tap to let us know it's working, eh?
Well, it was working, but I wasn't gonna tap, but
You're gonna get
I
rid
was
of
losing
position.
position.
So,
Yeah.
right, so this isn't to make him tap from if I'm getting my back taken, right now, this is going to be more of, think of it like a motivator, right? So
Get
I want
off
to get
my
out of
back.
this bad position. So I'm going to hold here, I'm going to get my head to the other side. Right. Sorry,
My
you're tapping
knuckles are
already.
crushing.
Sorry. So you could maybe get the tap from here, but the chances are, if I'm pushing in with my head here, as I'm rotating in, he's more likely going to move. I've given him a lot of space. Remember, we need to be able to coil into him, and just like any of the other locks, you went to the ground and you ran out of space. But here we're rolling, and he's got a lot of circular space, right? So as he goes, maybe I end up reversing into him here. Either way, I'm out of the rear naked choke. So the next one I wanted to show you is the opposite if Dan comes up. So it's called the gooseneck. So when we push in this way, right? So this is actually going to apply pressure directly against here. So if I had, for whatever way, let's say I put Dan back down on the ground this way. So he's down, and for some reason he starts to get back up, right? Anytime I have a hold of somebody, I have that second lock. So if I come around, so as Dan starts to get back up, because I wasn't paying attention, he's stronger than me, he starts to fight, I'm going to have that other lock. So I'm going to, again, range of motion. I'm going to push back with his hand, the flat of his hand, not his fingertips, but the flat of his hand back into his forearm. So the radius and the ulna that are there. I need to backstop his upper arm or his elbow against something. So as he comes up, I can use my chest, I can use my arm here, and from here, if you, for whatever reason, needed to move somebody out, this is the way to do it. So if we're going to move somebody in this position, I don't want to just be out here like this. I want to be in super tight, right? I want to be right against him. So right from here, he can't really go a whole lot of places, right? He can't punch me, can't do anything. We can walk wherever I need to go. If I needed to put him back down on the ground, that's the same thing. So how do we put that into actual rolling then? Okay, I'll do from side control. So you can actually hit this from side control. So however you're getting into that spot, so as I come around and I'm hitting side here, Dan's pushing on my hip, right? Which is quite common, right? He's trying to stop me. So however I get around him this way, whether I'm coming over here, now all of a sudden,
There it is. Bam!
see it right there. Okay. So this particular one, you might have to be a little bit tricky about it, or a little bit sneaky, or not obvious maybe is the best way to, because what would his escape be would be to straighten that arm out if he knows that it's coming, 'cause I'll lose it, right? So as I'm trying to get his hand off my hip, right, I'm going for this arm, all of a sudden back here, tap. What we were showing over here too was, so if, I won't go, I'll just put my knee here so you can see. So if for some reason I'm trying to get in here and Tim decides that he doesn't like this and he's going to fight it, we always have those other locks, right? So as he's coming around here, remember the one that we started the day with, Nika Joe? That's it right there. So I have the bend in the elbow, the outward vector is coming from my leg, right? Now boom.
Oh yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.